Good morning, guys, and happy Wednesday, day 18 of Distant Learning. Miss Soto is here to deliver to you your reading expectations for today. Alrighty, so you are to complete your 30 minutes of reading, the story of your choice, and then you will be reviewing point of view, and starting on, we'll be creating a narrative writing, okay? So if you could go ahead and turn to the Wednesday page in your packet, and then, pause the video and go ahead and read through just the Wednesday page. Alrighty, go ahead and pause. And welcome back. So let's talk about point of view. To determine point of view, we should ask ourselves 3 questions, okay? The first one being, what would the narrator or character agree with? How did the narrator or character explain different events? And what words did the narrator or character use to describe those events or other characters? Okay. And we answered these questions by analyzing the text that we read, meaning we read and make sense of it. So, for example, think back to yesterday's story, Death Valley. After reading Death Valley, to answer the question, what would the narrator agree with? Remember, that's our first question. What would the narrator agree with? To answer that, I'd have to look back into the story and see the things that the narrator said. So, looking back into the story, I see that the narrator hasn't heard of Death Valley before getting there, okay? They had never been there before. They had never even heard of it, okay? I also looked back and I found the ways that the character described the place. I walked on rough salt beds that looked like razor-sharp mountains. There were foot-long crystals. Salt crystals. Everything in Death Valley has a strange name. The character says, or the narrator said, the narrator says that it would be a great idea to find Dead Man's Gulch. He uses Dead Man's Gulch to explain, that the Death Valley has weird names for things. Okay. And then they also say, that the wonderful part was when they climbed out of the wash and the desert was covered with flowers. Okay. So, sounds to me like the narrator finds Death Valley to be very interesting. Just based on the things that I looked back into the text to see that the narrator said, sounds like the narrator is very interested in Death Valley. Okay. Then question number 2 was, how did the narrator explain different events? Well, the narrator was very detailed in pointing out the interesting things about Death Valley, like the razor-sharp mountains of salt, silly names like Dead Man's Gulch, and that the desert was covered in flowers. So, very detailed, very descriptive, explaining to us what it was that they saw in Death Valley. Now, what words did the narrator use to describe events or other characters? Like I said, descriptive words about Death Valley, what it looks and feels like to be there. The narrator doesn't describe the other characters other than saying that they are alive, one of the many alive things that are there in Death Valley. We know that they're his family that's there visiting Death Valley with the narrator. And we also know that it's because of the other characters that they investigated the wash. They would have never gone to the wash and seen all the flowers by the desert had the family members not wanted to do that. Okay. So after reading the story and determining the narrator's or character's point of view, you can determine whether or not you agree or you disagree with the narrator or characters of a story. Okay. So with that being said, today you will be planning a narrative. A narrative is a creative story, okay? So not an essay, but just a creative story. I want you to think about a time where you visited a new place, okay? It could be a different city, a different state, a new store, your cousin's house, going to Disney World. You could completely make it up, okay? But you're visiting a new place. And it doesn't have to be you. You can have characters, or it can be from your perspective, the narrator. Okay? So, once you come up with the place that you want to visit, I want want you to tell me about your experience in this new place, okay? So you're going to be creating a creative story, which we will be writing on Friday, so no rush. We're just gathering our thoughts and planning today. Okay, so I've got a list of a few simple things that you've got to write down for today, and that's it. All right, so first, you must determine your characters. Who is going to this place? Is it you? Is it you and some friends? Is it a made-up character? Who is going? Okay, that's the first thing. Who? Characters. All right. Next step. You need to figure out where you're going. Okay, where is the setting of the story? Which place are you going to be visiting that you have never been before? That's setting. Okay, so first is the characters. Second is the setting. Third, you need to list 2 experiences that happened while you were there. Okay, 2 things that happened while you were there. 2 of them. And then last, I want to know whether or not you would go again. So that's a yes or no question. Would you go again? Yes or no. And then you must explain to me why you would or would not go again. Okay, when I say explain, that means we've got some sentences to write. Not just 1 word, 2 words. We're writing complete sentences answering whether or not we would go back. Okay? That is that for reading. Now for science, if you, the remainder of this video is optional. If you are going to do science with us today, I give you a few seconds to go ahead and turn to your Wednesday page in your science packet. It has a picture of, it looks like birds flying over a lake and sea turtles. That's the Wednesday page. There's a picture of birds flying over a lake and then a picture of sea turtles. The sea turtles look angry. All right. So hopefully you're there. If not, pause the video and catch up with us, por favor. All right. So what do you notice about these animals? What are some things that you notice about these animals? Go ahead and take the time to write down what you notice about these animals. And then the next question says, what do you wonder? What do you wonder about those animals? You can pause the video to fill out that question. That's the hook. That's the top of the Wednesday page. All right, and welcome back. So, moving on, we see animals and seasons explained. All right, so I'm going to read this to you, and I want you to think about the words that I say, okay? Some places on Earth have warm summers and cold winters. People adapt to the changing seasons by changing the clothes they wear. Some animals, like the rabbit in this picture, grow thicker fur or change the color of their fur to adapt to the changing seasons. How do you think this fur color change will help the rabbit survive the change of season? And how will its thicker coat help in the winter? Go ahead and pause the video and take the time to answer that question. Again, it says, how do you think this fur color change will help the rabbit survive the change of season? And how will its thicker coat help in the winter? Now remember where bunnies live, okay? You can see there in the picture, I see one bunny in the winter, it's in the snow. And then I see the other bunny who it doesn't look like winter time, it's in the grass, okay? Think about that. And how will the colors of their fur and the thickness of their fur help them? All right, moving on. Other animals hibernate. Hibernation is an adaptation which occurs when an animal goes into an extended state of rest or inactivity, meaning not active, not moving around. This behavior is usually brought on by severe climate conditions where food sources in their habitat have become scarce or non-existent. When these animals slow down, their bodies require less energy to survive, which causes them to need less food. In Florida, there is an extreme difference between summer and winter temperatures. Because of this, many animals, such as the Florida black bear, go through a period called denning. Although this period is much like hibernation, because the bears slow down their activity during this time, it's different because they will remain more active and alert than bears in colder areas. And the question here asks, how do hibernation and denning help bears survive the changing seasons? Ooh, I know for a fact that I read the answer to that question in those paragraphs there. So if you have to go back and re-listen, do so that you can find the correct answer to that question. Alrighty. Next part. Many animals do not have an adaptation, like hibernation. That allows them to slow down their bodies so that they need less food to survive. These animals would die in the winter when food sources are hard to find if they weren't able to move to a new place. Many animals migrate in order to survive. Migration is the movement of animals to find food, a better place to reproduce, or less severe temperature conditions. So the question is, how will migrating to a warmer climate help these birds in that picture? Think about it. They're migrating, so, and if it's, how will migrating to a warmer climate help these birds? Birds migrate in the winter time, so they will go somewhere warmer. Why do you think they do that? Why do they go somewhere warmer, and how does that help them? Okay. Go ahead and pause the video and you can answer that question. I'm going to move on to our migration or hibernation activity. Your directions are to revisit the migration or hibernation sort. Remember, those are those cards that you cut out on Monday and that you sorted into the correct category, whether they'd be hibernating animals or migrating animals. Use what you know to sort the animals into the categories hibernation or migration. Check your answers at the bottom of the page when you are finished. So at the very bottom of this page, you will see the answers to that sort and making sure that it's correct. And then for your exit slip today, you will be thinking of an animal that hibernates. Draw a picture of the animal and describe why the animal hibernates. So what animal are you going to draw? You are unsure of what animal to draw? Do your sort, check your answers, and choose one from the hibernating section. Alrighty? It is so good to see you guys. I hope that you have a wonderful Wednesday. I hope that I get to see you during our Zoom meeting. Stay safe, and yeah, hopefully I'll see y'all later. Bye, guys.